Lightning does not negotiate with dreams. It does not care that a 21-year-old from a country with almost no tennis tradition is one set away from the biggest title of her career. It does not care about 5-hour delays. It does not care about a sold-out stadium or about a nation 7,000 miles away, wide awake at 3 in the morning, phones glowing in dark bedrooms, waiting for a scoreboard to move. On Sunday night in Washington, D.C., the sky simply took the match away. Eala was down a set to Jessica Pegula, the number 3 player on Earth, the only woman who had ever beaten her in a tour-level match. But she was climbing back. 2-1 in the second set. You could feel it in the way she was moving, quicker off the baseline, hungrier on the return. For the first time all match, the momentum belonged to her. Then the siren cut through the humid Washington air. Seek shelter immediately. That was the alert. Play suspended. The match that could make Eala the first Filipino player in history to win a WTA Tour title did not end that night. It just stopped, frozen mid-breath, like someone had reached out and slammed the book shut one page before the ending. 5 hours. That is how long players, coaches, and thousands of fans sat under that storm before officials finally pulled the plug for the day. The final would not finish that night. It would resume the next afternoon. So here is the question nobody can answer yet, and it is the only question that matters right now. When Eala walks back onto that court, will she be the same fighter who was clawing her way back into this match, or does one long, sleepless, rain-soaked night have the power to reset everything she just built with her own 2 hands? Because this was never just about a trophy. This is about a girl who left home at 13 years old, who trained an ocean away from her own family, who has spent her whole career getting underestimated by everyone except herself, standing on the edge of the single biggest moment of her life. And right now, that moment is on pause, sitting inside a rain delay that nobody saw coming. To understand why an entire country stopped breathing over a weather alert, you have to rewind, long before Washington, long before Pegula, back to a terrified 13-year-old kid who had never left the Philippines before, and a chance encounter at an airport in Madrid that nobody, not even she, could have known would matter this much. Manila does not produce tennis stars. Basketball does that. Boxing does that. Volleyball sometimes. Real tennis courts are rare there, and real coaches rarer still. And yet here was little Eala, 5 years old, already gripping a racket that was almost too big for her hands because her family had this stubborn, quiet love for a sport that almost nobody around them played. By the time she turned 13, she was good enough that someone noticed. Not just noticed, offered her a spot at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain. One of the most respected training grounds on the planet. The kind of door that almost never opens for a kid from the Philippines. So her family did something that still sounds a little insane when you say it out loud. They packed their whole lives into suitcases. Her parents, her brother, and Alex herself flying across the world so a 13-year-old could chase a dream with absolutely no guarantee attached to it. And before she had even stepped foot inside that academy, something happened that tells you everything you need to know about who she really is. Her family landed in Madrid on the way to Mallorca for what was supposed to be a simple 1-week trial. And right there, in the middle of a crowded airport terminal, they spotted him, Rafael Nadal, the very man whose name was printed on the building she was about to train in. They did not play it cool. They did not freeze up. They ran straight at him. "Can we get a picture?" they asked, breathless. He said, "Yes. Sit with that image for a second." A scared 13-year-old girl, thousands of miles from her bedroom, chasing down her idol in an airport terminal before she was even officially his student. That is not the tidy origin story of a chosen one. That is the story of a kid who did not belong there yet and knew it and showed up anyway. That 1-week trial turned into years. Years of early mornings on clay courts, years of training far from her family, far from her language, far from anything familiar, with no sponsorship, no spotlight, no promise waiting at the end of it. Just repetition, just discipline, just the kind of quiet, unglamorous sacrifice that never makes it into a highlight reel. She has spoken since about how intimidating it still felt to simply be near Nadal at the academy. She once admitted that when he personally messaged her to congratulate her after a huge win, she left that message sitting unread for 4 straight days, too nervous to even type a reply. Think about that. This is a woman who now trades forehands with 6-time major champions without blinking, and a single congratulations text from her idol was enough to make her freeze. That gap between the fearless competitor the world sees on court and the nervous, humble kid still living underneath all that success is exactly what makes everything that happened next so hard to watch unfold. Because right now, thousands of people online are asking the exact question you might be asking. How does a kid who left home at 13 with nothing guaranteed end up 1 match away from becoming the first player in her country's entire history to win a WTA title? If that question is pulling at you the way it is pulling at fans across 2 continents right now, stay with me because the answer only gets heavier from here. This next part is the piece most people scrolling through highlights have not connected yet. And once you see it, you will finally understand why an entire nation is glued to a rain delay. Because before Eala became the player an entire capital city was fighting to see in person, she had to survive the single darkest stretch of her young career. And it happened against the exact same woman standing across the net from her right now. Rewind 1 year, Miami 2025. Back then, Eala was nobody on that stage, a wildcard entry that nobody expected to make any noise at all. She clawed her way to the semifinal, and waiting for her there was Jessica Pegula, a fixture inside the top 10, a proven closer who had made a career out of finishing matches exactly like this one. The battle went 3 brutal sets. Eala pushed her, even stole the second set clean. But in the end, Pegula found a way, closing it out 7-6, 5-7, 6-3, close. Painfully, agonizingly close. The kind of loss that does not just disappear. It follows a young player around, whispering doubts every time a big match rolls around again. For a full year, that scoreline just sat there untouched, like a bruise that never quite faded. One data point saying the same thing over and over. When it matters most, against the very best, Eala comes up just short. Now, fast forward to Sunday night in Washington. Same opponent, except this time it is not a semifinal on a side court. It is the final. The entire tournament riding on it. And the ghost of Miami is standing right there on the other side of the net, waiting to see if history repeats itself. Set 1 begins, and for a few painful games it looks like Miami all over again. Pegula's flat, heavy ground strokes keep landing exactly where Eala does not want them, pinning her behind the baseline, stealing her rhythm. Pegula takes the set 6-4, 1 set down, and that same old pattern from a year ago is playing out again in real time, right in front of a packed American crowd. Here is the first question worth sitting with. Does history like that actually repeat itself? Or does every fighter eventually get the chance to rewrite it on her own terms? Set 2 begins, and something shifts. You can see it in her footwork first. Eala starts finding depth on her forehand, pushing Pegula back a full step, opening up the court. She breaks serve. 2-1, her favor. For the first time in the entire match, momentum finally belongs to her. And that is the exact moment the sky decided to interfere. Storm clouds had been building over the city for hours already. The forecast had delayed the very start of the match by 3 hours before a single point was even played. Now, right as Eala found her rhythm, the alert screamed across every phone on the grounds. Seek shelter immediately. Play suspended due to rain and lightning. Picture it. A stadium built for noise, suddenly emptied out. Thousands of fans who paid real money to witness this exact moment funneled into hallways, parking garages, anywhere dry. A scoreboard frozen at 6-4-2-1, mid-set, mid-comeback, mid-everything. No crowd roar, no strings snapping against a tennis ball. Just rain hammering down on an empty court where history was trying desperately to happen. Second question. If momentum is the single most fragile thing in all of sports, what exactly happens to it after 5 straight hours of silence? Officials waited, then waited some more. Players were told to stay ready, then told to wait longer, then told to wait again. 5 full hours passed with the court completely unplayable. Finally, well past dark, tournament organizers made the call nobody in that stadium wanted to hear. The match would not finish that night. It would resume the following day, Monday at noon. Think carefully about what that actually means for Eala specifically. She does not get to fall asleep with a 2-1 lead, the crowd behind her, and her own serve coming up next. Instead, she gets an unfinished set, an opponent who has already beaten her once on a massive stage, and an entire sleepless night to sit with every single thing that could still go wrong. Third question, and honestly, this is the one that matters most. In tennis, is momentum something a player can carry with her overnight, tucked away safely until morning? Or is it something that only exists in the moment, gone completely the second the lights go dark? Because if it is the second one, Eala did not just lose 5 hours on Sunday night, she may have lost the sharpest, most dangerous version of herself, the one who had just started to believe, really believe, that she could finally beat the ghost of Miami once and for all. Right now, nobody has that answer. Not the fans camped outside the stadium gates waiting for Monday. Not the commentators already speculating across social media. Not even Eala herself, sitting somewhere in a quiet hotel room in Washington, D.C., trying to sleep while a frozen scoreboard keeps replaying behind her closed eyes. Here is what we do know, though. The version of Eala who walked off that court on Sunday night looked nothing like that nervous wildcard who lost to Pegula back in Miami. Something had changed between those two matches, something far bigger than one storm delay. And almost nobody talking about this final has stopped to ask what that something actually is. Here's what everyone keeps missing about this entire match. Everyone online is talking about the storm. Everyone is talking about that frozen scoreboard sitting at 6-4-2-1. But almost nobody is talking about the 6 names lying quietly behind Eala on her road into this final. Qinwen Zheng, a former Grand Slam finalist, gone in straight sets. Leylah Fernandez, the defending champion of this exact tournament, gone. Alina Svitolina, the number 2 seed in the entire draw, gone. And in the semifinal, Naomi Osaka, a 4-time major champion, a former world number 1, one of the most dangerous ball strikers to ever step onto a hard court. Eala beat her 6-4, 6-2. That was not a nervy escape. That was not a lucky bounce off the net cord. That was a statement, hit with a flat forehand and zero hesitation. 6 top 10 wins this season alone. Read that number again, 6. That is not the profile of a player who folds under pressure. That is the profile of someone who has spent months quietly dismantling the entire upper half of women's tennis, one ranked opponent at a time, while almost nobody outside the sport bothered to notice until she was standing one match away from a title. So here is the reframe nobody wants to make. The easy story everyone keeps telling is simple. Scared underdog. One terrifying opponent. Will she choke again like she did in Miami? But that story stopped being true long before this final even started. The real story is that Jessica Pegula walked into Sunday night already worried. Before the final even began, reporters asked Pegula directly what it felt like facing Eala again. Her answer should stop you cold. She said she thought Eala had gained a lot of experience and confidence since the last time they played. She said that last time, everything was still new for her opponent, but now Eala has her feet firmly under her, with more time on tour and a completely different level of comfort. So, Pegula admitted, it was going to be a genuinely tough match. That is not the language of a favorite feeling relaxed and comfortable. That is the language of someone who watched the film, studied every rally, and did not like what she saw staring back at her. Sit with the psychology of that for a second. A year ago, Pegula was the storm, and Eala was the small boat just trying not to capsize. Now, the player everyone still assumes is the underdog has the tournament's top seed publicly admitting nerves before the match has even started. The power in that rivalry has quietly, almost invisibly, flipped completely upside down. That is the twist most people watching this rain delay unfold are missing entirely. They think the story is, can Eala survive Pegula one more time? The real story is, Pegula already knows she is not facing the same player anymore, and she said so out loud days before a single storm cloud ever rolled over Washington. Now picture Eala walking back out onto that court on Monday, not as the nervous wildcard from Miami anymore, as the player who just took down 6 top 10 opponents in a single season, including the very woman who beat her the last time these two shared a court. That delay did not happen to some fragile underdog just hoping to hang on for dear life. It happened to a competitor who has already proven 6 separate times exactly why she belongs standing right where she is standing. If that shift in power surprised you as much as it surprised me while digging through all of this, drop a comment below and tell me which of those 6 wins you think mattered the most. Something tells me we are not all going to agree, and honestly, I want to hear your case for it. Because here is the truth about momentum, storms, and frozen scoreboards. They can pause a match, they cannot erase an entire season, and there is still one more piece of proof left, the piece that ties this whole story together, that finally explains why an entire country stopped everything just to watch a rain delay turn into the biggest moment in Philippine tennis history. Let's connect every single piece now, because once you see the full picture laid out together, this stops looking like luck and starts looking a lot closer to inevitable. Go back to the very beginning of this story. We opened with one question. How does a kid who left home at 13 with absolutely nothing guaranteed end up one match away from making history? Here is your answer, and it is written in numbers that simply do not lie. Start with the ticket office. In the lead-up to this tournament, organizers revealed something almost unbelievable. More than 80% of every single ticket inquiry they received was about one player. Not the top seed, not the defending champion, Eala. The tournament director openly admitted he wished they had more tickets to sell for her. Let that actually sink in. A tournament that has sold out 6 years running still could not keep up with demand for one 21-year-old from the Philippines. That is not a fluke. That is a market responding to something completely real. Now look at the crowd itself. Every single match Eala has played over the past 12 months, from her Australian Open debut, where fans lined up outside for hours just to get through the gates, to Wimbledon, all the way to right here in Washington, has carried the exact same energy. Waves of Philippine flags, sections packed shoulder to shoulder, neutral tennis crowds transformed into something that feels a lot closer to a home game. Pegula herself has spoken about it, admitting she was almost caught off guard by how loudly that crowd favored Eala the last time they shared a court. Here is the second piece of proof, and this one hits differently, because it is deeply personal. Despite becoming the player an entire tournament now rearranges itself around, despite taking down 6 top 10 opponents in a single season, Eala still describes training alongside her mentor as something she can barely process. She has said sharing the court with Nadal felt like a dream most kids only ever get to imagine, and admitted she still gets nervous just standing near him. Think about that. This is a woman who has spent an entire season taking down major champions and former world number ones without blinking. And she still feels, somewhere underneath all of it, like that same wide-eyed kid chasing her idol through an airport terminal. That contradiction is the whole story, honestly. In public, on court, under lights, she is fearless enough to beat 6 top 10 players in a single season. In private, quietly, she is still the same humble kid, completely overwhelmed by an opportunity she was never supposed to get in the first place. So here is the prediction that follows naturally from every piece of evidence we have laid out. A player who has already flipped the power dynamic with her toughest rival, who has already proven she can beat elite competition when everything is on the line, who is walking into a rain-delayed final carrying far more momentum than most people realize, is not stepping back onto that court, just hoping to survive. She is stepping back onto that court, fully expecting to finish exactly what that storm interrupted. And here is one detail almost nobody watching this has connected yet. This exact final, delayed by weather, resuming a full day later, is happening on the very same stage where Jessica Pegula herself won her own first-ever tour-level title 7 years ago. The stage that once built one legend is now trying, right now, in real time, to build another. History is not just watching this match unfold. History is quietly repeating its own pattern, just with a different name being written into it this time. The storm never interrupted a coronation. It interrupted the final piece of proof for something that was already true long before a single raindrop ever fell. So let's return to the question we opened this whole story with. Does one long, rain-soaked night have the power to reset everything a fighter has spent an entire season building? Or is momentum something stronger, something a 5-hour delay simply cannot touch? Here is the honest answer. Momentum was never sitting inside that frozen scoreboard. It was never something a storm could wash away with rain. It was sitting in 6 wins over 6 different top 10 opponents. It was sitting in a rival who already admitted out loud before the match even began that she was worried. It was sitting in a 13-year-old girl who once chased her idol straight through an airport because she refused to let herself feel small in front of a dream that enormous. The storm delayed a set. It did not delay a season. Whatever happens, the moment Eala walks back onto that court, one thing is already true, and nothing can undo it now. A player from a country with almost no tennis tradition has spent this entire year beating former champions, major winners, and top 10 opponents, one after another, until an entire tournament quietly rearranged its own ticket office around her name alone. If she closes out this final the way this whole season suggests she will, she becomes the first player in Philippine history to ever win a WTA Tour title. That is not just a milestone for her. That is a milestone for millions of fans who have never before had one tennis player of their own to scream for at 3 in the morning, phone screen lighting up a dark bedroom, and if she does not close it out, if Pegula's experience shuts the door one more time, that will not erase a single thing this season already proved. It simply means the story keeps writing itself a little longer before it reaches the ending everyone watching already believes is coming. Either way, something bigger than one tennis match happened in Washington this weekend. A quiet, humble kid who once left a congratulations message from her own idol unread for 4 straight days out of pure nerves has become the player an entire nation now reorganizes its mornings around. That does not reverse itself because of one storm. So here is exactly where this leaves us. The scoreboard is still frozen. The rain has stopped falling, but the story itself has not finished writing its own ending yet. What happens next is still completely unknown, and honestly, that is the whole point. If you want to see how this ends, if you want to be here the moment history either gets made or gets delayed one more round, this is a story still being written in real time, right now, while you are watching it. Subscribing is not about supporting a channel. It is about not missing the ending to a story that started with a scared kid chasing her idol through an airport terminal and might finish with her name carved into the history books forever. The storm passed hours ago, The question it left behind still has not.